Hey guys, thanks for clicking on Pro Talk Outdoors. This is Dave Barrett, and you may notice this has got a little bit of a different sound than most of our other episodes, and the reason being, this is going to be episode one of Diving Deep. And basically, what diving deep is, if you've listened to our podcast in the past, you've noticed that we typically have those last around 40 minutes, 45 minutes, sometimes close to an hour, but we touch on some particular topics, but we don't really dive in depth and get, I guess, a lot of really deep strategy discussed, or we don't go really in depth on a topic. And what we're going to do now with this new series is we're going to dive deep into some of those topics. We may be talking about turkey hunting sometimes. We may be talking about deer hunting. We may be talking about fishing. And we may be talking about conservation. Who knows what we're going to talk about? But it's something that we really want to do, and just to give a different, just kind of a different feel for. And get a different type podcast out there. Another thing that you're probably going to notice is that there's going to be some different folks hosting this each week, or whenever we bring these out. It could be bi-weekly as well. So, um, you know, other team members. Usually it's JP and myself doing the podcast, but Craig Bowman, who does our editing and does a fantastic job with that. He's going to be participating in these sometimes. And, Eric Sparkman, who's been with us since day one, he's probably going to do some appearances on this podcast, as well as JP and myself. And then also Todd Harbin, a new team member, will be there. Um, as well as Wyatt Rivers. Wyatt Rivers has been with us, for a while now, and a very good outdoorsman. And this episode one is going to be kind of diving in depth as a conversation and getting to know Wyatt Rivers and getting to know what he's really all about. And we're just really happy to have him as a team member. Going to be some interesting things that we discuss in this podcast that I think that you might find very interesting about Wyatt and just about hunting in general. Before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about some sponsors. We couldn't do what we do without those sponsors, and I don't feel like that we do a good enough job thanking them enough. So I do want to mention a few of those, and we'll be doing that at the front end of these Diving Deep podcasts as well. So first and foremost, Real World Wildlife Products. They're really a chief sponsor for us. They make sure that we have all the mineral and all the food plot seeds that we need, and all the tools that we need to be successful. And they do that at a very affordable price for everyone out there. If you're a real world hunter and you want to do something that will improve your success rate in the outdoors, will help out the wildlife, not just your deer hunting, but also your turkey hunting, your upland game species, anything, be sure and go to realworldwildlifeproducts.com. Check out the wide range of products they have available. Wicked Tree Gear is a new sponsor for us this year, and they have, if you haven't checked them out yet, they have just the absolute best hand saws available on the market. They are built nearly indestructible. I don't know what you could do to try to tear those things up, but very sharp. The blades, they go through anything. The pruners do a fantastic job. They have pole saws, everything out there. One thing I wanted to mention with Wicked Tree Gear, if you go to wickedtreegear.com, when you're checking out after you make your purchases, use the promo code PROTALK. If you use that promo code, that'll save you 20% on all purchases. And as well, Glacier Coolers the same way. Glacier Coolers, there's two coolers out right now that you can go to their website, glaciercoolers.com, and check those out. These things are fantastic. Eric Sparkman and I went on a turkey hunting trip a couple weeks ago out to Nebraska, and we left on a Friday morning, and we had some meat that we wanted to save so we could cook on our trip out there. We put some ice in the cooler on Friday morning, and we didn't return home until Saturday afternoon, the following Saturday afternoon. So 8 days later, when we opened this cooler up, we still had ice in that cooler. So just a fantastic cooler. It keeps things really cool. It's an affordable, soft-sided cooler. Go to glaciercoolers.com, and the same thing there. Checking out, use the promo code PROTALK. Save yourself 20% there. So also, Banging the Boss game calls. They just come on for us as well. And being turkey season and things kind of ramping up, they've got a great range of mouth calls that are very affordable and do a tremendous job with their pot calls. They make a really good slate call, and they make also a good glass call. So check them out at bangingtheboss.com. Without further ado, let's get on into the podcast and introduce yourself or everyone to Wyatt Rivers. Hey guys, Dave with Wyatt Rivers, everybody. Joining me here for a podcast. We're going to do a little BS session here, Wyatt.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
Wyatt, you've, for anybody that follows our social media and stuff and our Facebook page and some of the videos that we've done, the shed rally, the conservation video, you've been a pretty important part of that, and really been a very important part of what we've been doing of late with, all of our direction and everything, and a lot of the quality stuff I feel like we're getting done.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I definitely don't think that I'm the biggest part of that. I mean, I think that collectively we've all done a better job. Yeah.
So. Well, and you're kind of selling yourself short a little bit there, because I do. I call you the idea man. We've got a great group.
I have a lot of ideas. I don't know that they're all good. But
I feel like they are. I feel like they are actually. The shed rally, your idea.
We've been doing that for a lot of years.
Yeah, I mean, but to film it, and to put that out there, and then also conservation kind of deal. That's something that we as a group have believed that. I guess individually we've had those beliefs.
I think everybody had that passion, and that's what was so. I think that's what made it so easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's why I have been able to have some ideas, because I know everybody's going to back them up if it's a solid one. And for everybody on our team, I mean, we all feel comfortable talking to each other. We all, we all share a similar mindset about the outdoors and things, and that makes it a lot easier. So have I had some ideas here recently? I have, but I think that I've just said them. Like, I think we've all had those feelings, those thoughts, those ideas. I've just been the person that said, what if we did this? You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So I think that, you say that I'm selling myself short, but I feel like we're selling everybody else short by saying that, they haven't thought that stuff. They haven't, explored some of those avenues, as a hunter.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So here's the neat thing, and we've had Eric has had a little bit of an appearance on a podcast. It's been about a year ago. We need to get him back involved a little bit. And then Craig was on the podcast with Michael Hunsucker, and we know that JP is here every week, along with me. So, we felt like that it was a good idea to kind of diversify a little bit, get everybody involved with not only the video and things, because we're all a big part of that, but to make sure everybody got a good introduction to each and every member of the team on the podcast. So that's basically what this is. I want to make sure this is kind of your introduction, through the podcast to everybody, and then also, just getting to know who Wyatt Rivers is and what he's about. So what would you say kind of sums you up as a hunter or a fisherman, outdoorsman in general? What's your goals?
Ooh, that's interesting, because I have a lot of different goals. That's an interesting question, and I think I have a lot of different goals that pertain to different things. I guess ultimately, my life goals as an outdoorsman is, first and foremost, which we don't have any kids yet, Kelly and I don't, but if we do have children, like, I want to be a great role model in the outdoors to them, like my father was to me.
Yeah.
And show them the moral and ethical way to do things. I guess secondly, is that a word, secondly? I don't know if that's a word.
It is. It works.
Okay. All right. secondly, then I guess my goal would be to introduce new people to hunting and the outdoors.
Which you've actually done that a good bit. I mean,
I I
I've kind of gathered that just by certain people that we've been around, and it's people that maybe you got to start. You help them get their start in the outdoors.
It's definitely a passion of mine. No doubt about that. Well, and I think it should be a passion of everybody's that's an outdoorsman because that's the future of our sport. I mean, it's not. I think, unfortunately, I think some people, some hunters have the mindset of if I take somebody hunting, then that's taking an opportunity away from me in the woods or on the water, or
Selfishly.
in the water.
Yeah, selfishly.
Right? And we can't, as hunters, we can't look at that because it's so much bigger than that. It's so much bigger than us. We can't think about, oh well, then if I take, Joe or whoever. If I take him hunting, he might shoot my big buck. Well, be happy that he did because you helped that person. You helped them learn.
Take some pride
right,
in that.
Right. Take pride in that. Don't
Right.
don't be upset because somebody maybe got an opportunity that you didn't get. Be happy that you introduced somebody to the sport, and they're going to be an advocate of the sport, and maybe they're going to take somebody, and maybe they're going to have interaction with people that are non-hunters, and they're going to they're going to have a positive interaction. And that's the other thing that goes with it too, is if we do take new people, which I mean we should be doing this regardless, right? But if we do take new people, we need to make it really really obvious, or if we have interaction with new people, we need to make it really obvious and really make it a point to have them enjoy the experience and not
Yes.
and not like because I mean, and Dave, you'll agree with this. The main thing that we go hunting for, it's not to go kill something. Like that's such a small part of like the whole process. Like I mean, it's seconds, right? I mean,
Right.
by the time you draw your bow or pull up your gun, and pull the trigger or
There's a huge
squeeze your release.
experience there
Right,
that is
right,
so
right.
much more.
Yeah, like that. Honest, like the kill shot to me, honestly, is one of my least favorite parts about it because then it's over. Right? Like that.
There's a certain amount of remorse that goes along with that, and
Without a doubt.
that's something you really cannot explain to a non-hunter and let them understand that because
No, I think. Well, yeah, no, you can't.
there's no way to put that in words.
You can't. And I think there's remorse for a lot of reasons, right? I mean, depending on where you're at. Like, I think, I mean, obviously, we as hunters, we have a big responsibility. Like, we're taking something's life, and we're trying to do something ethically, right? So we're trying to make a good shot, and like we're prepped and everything like that before season, or we should be. And like that in itself, like I mean, I think there's some remorse for that animal. Like we know we're doing the right thing. We know that meat's feeding our family, and we're keeping populations in control and things like that. But I still think that there's like if you don't have any type of remorse or anything when you kill something, then like.
You're probably not out there for the right reasons.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I think there's like remorse or I don't know if remorse is the word here, but there's like a sinking feeling knowing that it's
That
over
story's
for the,
over.
yeah, that story's over, and whether that be like a big buck that you've been after for a few different years and like you finally take him, and like you're on cloud nine in some regards, but at the same time like there's a pit in your stomach that's kind of like, oh my gosh, the story's over.
Wait, because
Like this whole chase is over. The whole everything is
that
is
that
now.
entire experience is over. And here's the thing too
Yeah.
that people have to understand that uh, by and large we don't go on guided hunts.
No,
Most
no.
everything that we do is it's on properties that we have a very deep relationship with, and we food plot it, we manage that property, we have pictures of these deer for unless it's a new property that we just gained, which happens sometimes, but
Yeah, right.
it's a lot of times, most often times when we harvest a big deer, it's a deer that we know, we've had pictures
Yes.
of.
Yes.
There's we've had
Yeah. Or
encounters
we know
with.
that he's like in the area. Maybe he's
Yeah,
like lives on a neighboring property, but
there's a story
like
there.
yeah, but there's some sort of story there.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a sinking feeling knowing that like that whole chase is over, and knowing that you've got to wait like in Indiana. If you're not hunting multiple states, which I typically don't, I typically just hunt in Indiana, and I hunt with with obviously with myself and and Kelly, my
I'm
wife.
always there when I
Yeah,
go hunting.
when I go hunting, I'm always there, right? So and I hunt with Kelly, my wife, who has turned into really, I mean, honestly, I couldn't be any more proud of her as what she's become as a hunter, and not because of some of the deer that she's been able to take, but her mindset, her I think the ethics that she portrays, like when people are looking and when people aren't.
Well, see,
You know,
here's the thing. Kelly. I have to say this. Like, you and Kelly are like, a couple of my favorite people. I mean, I really feel blessed that we were able to meet and become good friends and start, doing this stuff together. Kelly is, man, she's a saint for having to deal with you.
yeah, she is, isn't she?
No,
She's
man,
a poor lady.
I'm
Yeah.
kidding, but she is very just a great role model for ladies that want to get out in the outdoors.
I think she is. I mean, I really genuinely think that. Maybe I'm biased, but I mean, and she's always like that's the thing about it that's kind of amazing to me. Like Kelly didn't hunt before we started dating, and like
Yeah,
it was my introduction to the outdoors that really got that got her involved, and I have to say, she has always had a really really good outlook on things. Like from the get go, she's had a really good outlook on things, and it wasn't going out and like she's never, and like she's put me in check sometimes because she's never out there to necessarily like quote unquote kill something. You know what I mean? Like
right.
that doesn't determine if she had a good or bad hunt.
You know,
You know what I'm? Does that make
yeah,
sense?
it makes perfect sense. But now I want to go back because what you just brought up was Kelly didn't hunt whenever, prior to meeting you.
Right.
And so many times I think is as hunters, and we talk about introducing new people into the sport, everybody immediately goes to kids, which is a great thing. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
It's great to introduce kids to the sport. That's something that, we're going to take some kids out in youth turkey season this year and try to film them killing their first birds. So that's going to be a neat experience there as well. But you have introduced a good number of adults to the sport of hunting. And I think that's important to touch on because it's not something that, I guess oftentimes people may feel a little bit overwhelmed when they want to get into hunting and they're an adult because they feel like they're behind the curve a little bit.
Yeah.
And, even Craig, Craig was I don't even know,
Craig was a non-hunter.
Was he a teenager? Or, I mean, he was maybe 20 or
Craig
something.
was like 19 or 20. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, Craig and I went to school together. He was a year younger than me. I mean, growing up, we went to church together. We played basketball together. Stuff like. I mean, we'd known each other our whole lives. But honestly, like that is Craig is absolutely one of my very best friends right now. And Craig and I had always been friends through school and things, but we weren't close like we are now because of that bond that we have with the outdoors.
right.
Because Craig wasn't necessarily as interested. I think he was interested, but like nobody in his family really hunted. There wasn't that outlet.
Yeah, he was
You know?
he wasn't brought up around the outdoors.
Right,
at all.
right. Like somebody like me, like I didn't have a choice.
So
I mean, in some
he just
regards,
basically had some friends that were
Yeah,
hunting,
yeah.
and he probably came to you and said, "Hey, Wyatt, I'd kind of like to hunt."
Yeah, so we were hanging out one night. We were out to eat. I think we were actually at like Buffalo Wild Wings. So if if they want to sponsor something, I'm kidding. That was yeah. That was a low blow there. But no, we were eating at Buffalo Wild Wings one night, and it was during. Yeah, it was like in October. It was during early bow season. We'd met like after Todd and I had hunted. Todd, who's actually one of my other best friends I've hunted with my entire life.
Another guy that's been helping us
Yeah,
out.
Todd helps a ton. But we were there and we were talking about like some of the stuff that we had seen, on the previous hunt and stuff that evening, and just kind of talking about the whole experience. And Craig was like, "Man, that sounds really cool," and we like both looked across the table at him. We're like, well, why don't you go? He's like, man, I don't know. He's like, I'm squirreling and stuff, and like, shot birds and stuff when I was a kid, running around on the farm. But he's like, I've never hunted, and so. Anyways, actually, the first time that Craig ever went hunting with us, so it was early November. It was prime, dude. I mean, it was a prime morning, but we had it was bow season, and so we were hunting like in a little wood lot, and Craig climbed up in the tree. We got him safety harness, camo and everything. We had all that stuff. So Craig got in a tree with Todd, and I hunted like 100 yards or so down.
Right.
Like we both had pretty good winds and stuff, but it wasn't about that. Like it was about like just
getting
Craig.
him introduced.
Yeah, and he
to
had
it.
a camera. Like I had a camera and stuff, and like Todd and I filmed like a little bit, but not seriously. But
Right.
just kind of we'd bring it home and watch on the TV and show our dads, and like
Yeah.
thought we were cool kind of deal,
Well, it's
and it was cool.
It's a neat experience,
right?
yeah.
And that was that was Craig's first experience was running a camera right there, and like he's the best at running a camera.
Yeah,
dude. Like I mean he's good. Like he
What-
just
We've
and I
talked
think
about
that-
that so many times. How
yeah.
good Craig is at that. I don't know how, but he's just got a vision.
I think that kind of stuck with him. Like I think that like initial thing, and like that morning we rattled in like it was like a 2.5-year-old ape. Or it might even have been a year and a half. I don't remember. Like I rattled him in, and he came like right in, and
But
was
that
just
that hooked Craig for life.
yeah.
right
So
there.
like so that was like bow season. It was early November. So like our gun season here in Indiana usually comes in the middle of November, like around the 15th, right?
Right.
So I said, hey man, I've got a gun. I've got a shotgun. I said, I've got stands for you to go to. I've got places you can hunt. Whatever you want to do. So it was an opening morning, opening weekend, something right there. Craig went out and he shot his first doe, right there that first morning, that he got out there. And from that point on, for sure, he was hooked.
He was
hooked.
hooked.
He got him a couple does that year. And loved the meat. I mean, that was a big part of it,
Yeah.
And him and his whole family.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, like he was sharing it with everybody and was like, so, I think that, I think there was a lot of pride there that he was able to provide. And I don't know. I mean, that's probably a better question for Craig, right? I feel pride though.
I do. I mean,
I do. And I think to be able, especially like younger, and like nobody else in his family hunted, I'm sure that brought like a lot of pride to him to be able to bring that meat in and share it with everybody, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, and that's such a cool experience when you do that, and that's a big way that I've introduced, non-hunters or maybe people that had like some interest in it but didn't really hunt. Was like, hey, come over, because we eat wild game a lot. Come over for dinner.
Do you have that guest ever comes over? I mean, I know this is kind of off subject of what we're talking about, but do you have that guest that comes over and like you've got tenderloin out there, man, just some of the best tasting meat, and they're like, is this deer? I'm not going to eat it.
Yeah.
Is this deer? Ooh, that's gross.
Sometimes. Not often.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty manipulative, so I can usually.
So you're
yeah.
like, well, just taste
I can
this.
usually convince somebody to eat it. No. I
mean,
now sometimes, but I think honestly though, I really think I think most people are more open-minded about that than maybe they used to be, because I mean everybody's like kind of going with that organic stuff, and there's nothing more organic than wild game, right? And that's like a great way to sell it in some regards. And the other thing about it is, if you tell these people like how you prepared it, like that you cut it up and you packaged it and you field dressed it, and like you were the only person that touched this meat, I think people that trust you are more trusting of that. And then you tell them about the marinade or whatever you put it in and like your preparation, and they're like, man, that sounds pretty good, I think I might try it. And then they try it and they're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, because do you have it? I mean, I know like whenever I go to the grocery store, if I'm going to buy a steak or if I buy chicken or something like that from the grocery store, man, it's always in the back of my mind, like, wonder where this was at. I wonder if this sit on some loading dock in the sun for 10 hours before it got put on a refrigerated trailer or something, I mean, you just never know.
I think you're really disconnected if you don't ever have like those thoughts.
Yeah, I mean,
what I mean?
It weirds me out to an extent now. So I mean, like, if possible, I'm eating wild game. Like, I mean, almost every meal.
Well, I mean, you eat over here with Kelly and I quite a bit, and I mean the whole crew does. But I mean, you especially, like, we spend quite a bit of time together working on stuff, kind of behind the scenes things. I mean, we eat a lot of wild game.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we eat a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
period.
why
But
why you think I practically live here, man?
yeah,
I mean, it's a good
yeah.
meal always.
But yeah, you can bet on there being some good food, right? But we eat a lot of wild game. I mean,
Yeah.
and primarily deer because that's the most readily available. I mean, we
Right.
eat the turkeys that we shoot. I mean, we love those. But we can shoot one turkey in Indiana. If I go to Kentucky, we can shoot a
Couple more.
couple more. But still, I mean, that's 3 or 4 birds. That doesn't last a really long time. You know.
No, I rarely my turkey meat rarely
Yeah.
lasts past
And we always like
first
those
part of summer or something.
those rarity kind of meats, or I'm not gonna say rarity, but let's say like turkey. Deer is more plentiful. Deer meat is more plentiful than like turkey meat, right? Because I
Right.
mean, there's just so much more on a deer,
Yeah.
you know. So we always try, like, if we're frying up turkey or something, we invite a lot of people over.
Yeah.
I mean, just to like enjoy that. And maybe that's another bridge. I don't know. Like, I've never really thought about it that way. Like, I've never thought about, like, how am I bridging these people into getting interested in hunting?
That's interesting you say that. Like, so I want to completely back up here a little bit. Like, you know, our first experience together, the first time I met you was actually when we were tracking JP's deer over
Yeah.
in Kentucky.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
and here's the thing. Like, it was, I don't know, maybe another month after that or something. You had sent me a message or something, and you said, hey, we're doing a veterans hunt for I think it was called Wheeling for Whitetails or something.
Yeah, you know what? I might screw up the name. It's a local church here. They
Hoosier
put it on
Hunters Helping Heroes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So
yeah.
yeah, so a local church down here in this area, down in around Clark County, Indiana,
Mhm.
put on this hunt every year, and they bring veterans in. They're wounded veterans basically.
It's a great program.
An absolutely great program, and you were thoughtful enough that you contacted me and said, hey Dave, you think you might want to come down and and help out, in whatever way. And I was like, heck yeah. I mean, yeah, it was the first part of November, and it's like, well, that's a great time to hunt. But to me, there was no way I was going to miss that if at all possible.
Well, and I feel like, and I don't know, but I feel like good deeds don't go unseen. You know what I mean?
Well,
and I feel like that's
it's about how it makes us feel. I mean,
I feel like that's a good deed, like that we did, and I know that it would be a lot easier to be like, man, it's November the 5th. Like, I'm gonna be in a tree, but and I've said that before.
right.
I have. Like, I'm not gonna act like I'm high and mighty and haven't. Like with
Yeah.
a lot of things.
Yeah.
But after doing that, I was like, man, like from here on out, like I'm gonna dedicate that weekend to doing that.
Yeah, well, see,
know?
yeah, so I come down, and you and we'd never hunted together. We'd never fished
No.
together.
Yeah,
We'd
we had
never
no
really
idea.
spent any time together at
Yeah.
all. And just by luck, luck's great grace, we just happened to be able to, the second day, we got to share a blind with Dale.
Right.
Dale
Yeah.
Lunsford.
Dale,
What
what
a
about
dude,
that guy,
what
man?
a dude, man.
Yeah, I tell you what, like that guy he is like one of my favorite people.
He is the
I mean,
real deal.
there's nobody. I don't think there's anybody that I've ever met that is more genuine and nice as Dale.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, genuine. And talk about a guy that gets it. I
Oh,
mean, this
yeah.
is a guy that's partially paralyzed
Yeah.
from the waist down, and we're out there, and we saw some really nice deer. I mean, we saw what the. Well, that wasn't what the morning that we took Dale. We saw 3 shooters,
Yeah.
and by shooters I'm talking 4.5-year-olds. But I
Yeah,
mean some
mature
dandies.
deer.
I mean one
Really
maybe
nice.
150. The other 2 were probably what 130s, mid 30s,
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, but nice deer,
Very
especially
nice.
for Indiana.
The-
Like a 4.5-year-old deer around here is like that's a really nice.
Yeah,
deer,
you're not going to
you
find
know?
hardly anybody
Yeah.
that would pass up these
And
deer.
I was kind of feeling bad because I mean we had them close, but like it just wasn't close enough. I look over at Dale and I'm like, man, I'm sorry. I wish I'd have put the blind. He goes, this is the best morning I've ever had in the woods. He goes,
Yeah.
don't
Oh,
apologize
yeah.
for anything.
Yeah.
And like at that point, like I think in that first deer that like came out, it was pretty early, and we didn't really know Dale real well at that point.
Right,
But
yeah.
like by the end of that whole thing, like, man, I'd give that guy anything. You know what I mean?
Well, see, yes.
And he came back up, and I mean, he
Yeah,
stayed here at the house.
You
and, like,
opened
came
your
back
house
and,
up and invited him back up, and
Yeah,
he came back up
came
and
back
hunted
up and
again.
hunted.
But I guess that's what I was wanting to talk about a little bit. So you and I, that was our first time we actually sat together in a blind, and we got to know each other, and it was like, man, we just kind of have the same thoughts, the kind of the same goals, and the same vision, and how we appreciate the outdoors, and everything that we're about. And I was just blown away at how you just, after meeting Dale there, you were like, man, Dale, come on back. I mean, the hunt was over. I mean, we had done what we, were supposed to do, and Dale
Right.
Dale was going to go on back to Kentucky, I think, and just not come back to Indiana. And you're like, hey, you got a tag, Dale. Come on back up, and you and Kelly opened up your home and, um,
Yeah,
tried
we
to
had
spend
you
some
guys
time.
back out,
Yeah,
like, so you all could spend some time with them and stuff, and no, it was a cool experience.
yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't trade that for the world. And like, I
No,
think that that's like the biggest thing about hunting, that like these people, like we were talking about earlier, they're like, well, that person might not, they might shoot the deer that I'm after or something. I don't want to introduce anybody new. But you're missing out on so much. You're missing out on that camaraderie. And honest to God, I mean, at the end of our lives, are people gonna remember Wyatt Rivers for like the deer that Wyatt shot, for the deer that I shot? No, they're gonna remember me for the friend that I was and the person that I was.
right.
Like those deer are I mean, they're great. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I love them, and I stare up at my wall, and like I think about like each deer that I look at, like I can tell you the exact date, the exact time, the story, like everything about it, right?
Right.
And like it just, I constantly flash back to those memories. Those are great, but ultimately, like that's such a small piece of the puzzle to hunting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like
it is really.
the mounts and things like that. Like I mean, that is such a small piece, and like honestly, like I think some people have mounts because they want to
Show it
show
off.
off to their friends.
Show it off. Hey, look at this big deer I killed.
Right, right, right. And like when I have a mount or like a deer in my house or whatever, or a picture on my phone, like I don't flash pictures around to people very much. I mean, you know that. Like
Yeah,
I mean, how long did we go like before like I really started flashing like a pretty good while.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I just thought you didn't like me that much.
yeah, no, I don't know, dude. I'm just weird about that. Like I don't. But I guess like my point is like when I mount a deer, or Kelly shoots a deer that we have mount, like it's we're mounting it for the memories. Does that make sense? To take us back to that time, to that hunt, to that deer that maybe we
Right.
chased for 3 years, and like you think about everything that you went through to be able to connect with that deer, to catch up to him or whatever, and all the ups and downs and everything that go with hunting, and all the friends that were involved, like before and after the hunt. I mean, and that's the thing with me, like, dude, I have a huge friend group that are hunters,
Oh yeah.
and like,
Yeah, you do.
any of these deer up here, like, I'm not the sole reason that these deer are dead. I mean, like, I'm not.
It's
like,
the
I mean,
group of guys
it's
you hunt
the group
with,
of
and
people that I
it's
hunt
almost
with,
like a
dude. I
team
mean,
effort. Yeah.
it's my dad, it's Todd, it's Mike, it's Craig. It's Kelly. I mean, Kelly's a huge part of it. I mean, but it's all those people.
That's
that
one
it goes
thing.
to.
Yeah, that's one thing that like, and Eric will attest to this. Like, after I spent the weekend down here and we were at the veterans hunt, I went back, and the next time that I went out and filmed Eric, I was sitting in the stand with him, and I think he probably got tired of hearing me because all I talked about the whole time was how envious I was of what you guys as a group down here had established. I mean, it was like you open your home up to like everybody in the area, and like people are coming in, they're sharing trail camera pictures. Everybody
Right.
is, they're coming in and talking about the hunts that they had. It was just something. It felt like a deer camp type
Yeah, it kind of
atmosphere,
is. Yeah.
but it's like you live it all fall. I mean, and it's
Yeah.
not just in the fall. I mean, it's year
No, it's
round for
year
you guys.
round. It's year round.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something that it really speaks to what you guys have been able to build down here, and you didn't build that by being the selfish type hunter. That hey, I got a picture of a big deer. I'm not going to share it with anybody or talk to anybody about it. What I found was pretty interesting is even your neighbors. You guys kind of
yeah,
share
we
information
communicate
back
with our
and forth.
neighbors.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the best. That's the best part about it. Well, I mean, you think about it, like you're concerned that that neighbor might know about that deer that you know about. Well, like around here, like there's not thousands acre tracts. They know about them. Like,
Right.
that deer's on their property, too. You might as well be open about it, because what happens when that deer disappears from your property for 2 weeks and you're sitting there sweating bullets and you're like, man, did he get hit on the road? Did somebody shoot him? Is he wounded? Is he just off with the doe? Like, where's he at? What's he doing? Like, I can text I can text Jamie. I mean, there's
Yeah.
numerous neighbors that we communicate, we talk. I mean, we're all really good friends, right? And I think that's the other thing. We want all of us to be successful, like equally,
Yeah,
right?
and
You know what I
that's
mean? Like,
yeah,
we
and that's a
equally
rare
get
thing.
jacked up, like when somebody else is successful, and like we help each other. We all help each other plant food plots and put tree stands out, and like we know the way that their properties lay, and stuff like, and shed hunt together, and all that type of stuff. So like and you get a lot. I think you get a lot broader understanding of how deer use the landscape. Like, when outside of looking at Google Earth and stuff. I mean, Google Earth is awesome. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But there's nothing that replaces walking something.
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground is, and you kind of, you get to put those pieces of the puzzle together. Say you've got like a south facing ridge, okay?
Yeah.
And when you have a north wind or something, you're constantly seeing that deer on your property, right? And then, but when you have a south wind, like, you're never seeing that deer, and it's like, what the heck's happening?
He's
to him,
over on the
dude?
neighbor's property.
He's on the
other
neighbor
ridge.
property that has a north facing ridge because of the wind direction, because he's setting up on that south facing ridge with that north wind blowing over his back, just bedded over the ridge to where it kind of makes a wind tunnel and stuff, and he can smell what's behind him and up the ridge, and he can see everything below him. And he's doing the exact opposite of that, with that south wind. He's
Right.
bedding on like that north facing slope or what have you. I mean,
So let me ask
so
you this.
we can
Yeah,
compare that
so
type
you've got,
of stuff.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I'm sure it wasn't always that way. It wasn't always that you guys had that great communication.
No,
So
it absolutely wasn't. I mean,
how did you? Because I know there's guys that are listening to this right now, and they're thinking, well, there's no way in hell that I can get my neighbor to have that kind of relationship with me. Even though whoever's listening to this may think I want to have that relationship with my neighbor, but they're going to think there's no way my neighbor would communicate like that with me. How did you approach that? Or was it even you that approached it? Was it your neighbor that approached you?
No,
I mean,
I don't know. Honestly, I mean, it's been like this for a while now. I'm not sure who approached who. I think the key is, because I mean, I have approached other people. I think the key is to be transparent.
just honest. Be honest
Just be
about
honest about
Don't
stuff.
try to hide something if you.
Yeah, just don't try to hide stuff, and because like I said, I mean, if you know about a deer and you're hunting on 100 acres, like, your neighbor knows about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
honestly,
if they
honestly, we're talking about being transparent with your neighbor. You're not going to go to town and
you're
tell
right.
everybody
Yeah,
you
no.
see in town, hey,
Dude.
I'm hunting over here, and
Well,
I've got.
and
yeah.
I'm not the type of person that blasts stuff all over social media, like trail camera pictures and
Right.
stuff like that. I'm not saying that I'm secretive, but
You almost have to be in a way.
I'm not somebody that, I don't want to look like I'm bragging or anything. You know what I mean? Like that. I mean,
You're a very humble guy.
I want to be. I mean, I want to be perceived as humble.
Yeah, you are.
You know?
You are. Without a doubt.
Because I mean, we're all just deer hunters, right? I mean, we all have the same goal. It doesn't matter what we're killing. But I guess back to your question there. Being transparent, being honest, and the biggest key is having like-minded neighbors, and like, that's hard to find, and we're
Right.
fortunate as far as that goes.
Yeah.
But that's something that, if somebody's leasing property, if somebody's looking for new property and asking around for permission on different properties and things, ask the people that hunted there before, or the landowners, or whoever that has knowledge in that. Say, hey, what are the neighbors like? Because that's the most important part. Because if you're somebody that wants to manage, for, let's just say, 4.5 or 5.5-year-old deer, right? And you only bow hunt,
Right.
and your farm's going to be bow hunt only, and you have 100 acres. Maybe you're buying property and you're looking at a property, and it's a 100-acre property, or you're leasing 100 acres, or you're hunting 100 acres. But then your neighbor has 200 acres, and all they do is gun hunt, but they bus in 40 people and
Yeah, it's going to
shoot
be an issue.
literally,
Everything they see.
everything that they see. That's going to be really, really hard to contest. I mean, you know what I mean? That's going to be hard to compete with.
Yeah, you almost have to
you're
sell
not-
it to them the kind of
that's-
quality that's possible.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing. And that's a hard bridge. And I understand why it's a hard bridge, because here's the bottom line. We're all hunters. And just because, like, take us for example, just because we decide to try to shoot 4.5-year-old and older deer and, like, you know, try to kind of manage that doesn't necessarily make it right. That's just the way
That's
that we
our
choose
way.
to do things.
Yeah, because they're not wrong. The neighbors that have, 10
No.
guys come in and hunt that 100 acres at
No.
different times, as long as they're safe,
Yeah, they're safe
and they're ethical.
They're legal, and
ethical,
you know,
yeah.
you hope that people are doing ethical things. But I mean, technically, as long as they're legal,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Yeah.
technically speaking, by law, as long as they're legal, there's not a lot we can do about it, right?
Yeah, and we
you know?
and we actually here's the thing that's I think is very difficult. We have to support those people. Even though
We do.
we may not be like-minded from that sense, we have to support those people.
We're all hunters.
And yes, and we have to do that.
Yeah.
We have to do that with social media. Like
We're all on
that's-
the same team.
That's one
Right.
thing with social media that
It is hard.
you
It's-
see some people, some groups, whether you're talking crossbow hunters or rifle hunters or archery hunters, traditional hunters,
Yeah, traditional
muzzleloader
archery.
guys.
I mean, you know.
There are guys even in this industry that would say,
Excuse me.
would say, hey, if you're not harvesting these deer with a muzzleloader or a compound or traditional, you're cheating. Really, I mean,
Right.
you're not doing things the right way. If you
Right.
go out there with a high-powered rifle, completely legal though. Completely legal.
Right.
So it's kind of a slippery slope. You got to support those people at the same time and realize you're all on the
Well,
same team.
I think, I think here's where things get tricky, right? I think that people in general, and me included, I mean, I'm not excluding myself, but I think that we think that we're more important than we actually are to, like, everything, you know? Like,
the
to the
world
whole
revolves
world.
around us.
Right,
kinda thing.
right.
Yeah.
Like, that's how
Well, I
our,
think it's human nature to be a
it's
little
human
bit
nature. Right.
self-centered. A little bit, yeah.
Right, and we have a tendency to think that what we're doing is the right thing, and that we have a bigger that we maybe make a bigger footprint than we actually do. And my point is, we have to look at the big picture. We can't look at, well, you know what, Wyatt's over there and he only shoots 4.5-year-olds, but and then his neighbor, he wants to shoot 1.5-year-olds, and then Wyatt's going to be mad about that. Like, yeah, I mean, is that frustrating sometimes? It is, but the bottom line is the big picture part of it is we're all hunters.
Yep.
And we all have, like, that connection with the outdoors, and we all have to support each other, because if we start to divide like that, then that makes it easier for the anti-hunters to break us up and put us in smaller portions and then attack,
Yeah.
And two, I think that it shows, like, to the non-hunting public, and that's like 80% of the population, right? Or,
Yeah,
like,
what is it,
non-hunters.
like 14% actually hunt or something like that?
Something like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't have the figures.
it's a big number. It might not be 80%, but I mean, I don't have the figures yet. But it's substantially more people don't hunt and, like, have no opinion of hunting than they do have a really good opinion of hunting and do hunt, or have a really, really bad opinion of hunting, or complete and total anti-hunters and, like, are never going to hunt, right? And, like, think it's the worst thing in the world, right?
Yeah.
That's the middle ground. So if we as hunters are fighting amongst each other and saying, well, what you're doing is wrong and that's not ethical, and that you shouldn't be allowed to do that and this and all that, doesn't that kind of give a bad perception to us?
Well, yeah, it
To
just
that
makes us,
that
yeah.
non-hunting public, to that big number of people, doesn't that kind of give, like, a bad perception to us? And they say, gosh, they can't even figure it out amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe hunting isn't
That's a
that
messed
good.
up
It
group.
just seems kind of selfish, and, like, Wyatt's complaining about Joe over there on the next property over shooting 1.5-year-olds and stuff. Well, that's legal. Joe's taking it home to eat. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the big picture thing. So we all have to kind of come together.
Yeah.
We
do.
in some regards. Now, I think that as hunters, we can encourage people to grow as hunters, right? And by doing that, and I've done this with like uh, several different people, like, and I think the approach is kind of what's hard, right? Because you don't want to come across as, hey man, I'm better than you. Let me show you what I'm doing. I mean, because
Yeah,
that sucks.
yeah, yeah.
Then people,
Then people thinking,
yeah,
"Why it's a jerk."
yeah, exactly, exactly, and they as well they should, right? As well they should. Like if you come across as that, but I think the way that you can do it and tactfully is say, "Hey man, I've been seeing some really nice deer," or "Hey, I kind of had an idea. What do you think about this? I kind of, I want to see if we can work on this together. And I want your input and I want my, like why don't we work together as a team?" And tell that person, just be straight up, say, "Hey, I'll be completely and totally honest with you." If you'll be honest with me, and we'll work together as a team, and if you take that big buck, man, I will help you drag it out of the woods. I will congratulate you. I'll give you a hug. I'll take all your pictures. Everything that I can possibly do. And I hope that if I take that big buck or whatever doe, whatever your goal is, turkey, whatever it is, you'll repay the favor to me. And more times than not, those people I've noticed are happy for you.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
You know,
Everything that you just said, that wasn't a BS line. I've seen you do the exact same thing
yeah,
that you just said. I've seen you even with me, and different hunters within our group, and in the circle of guys that are around.
excuse me.
You know, if you'll ask questions. We're looking at maps. We had a session down here where we were kind of planning out what we were going to plant
Yeah,
with
we do
food
that.
plots and stuff.
We do that every year. Like we lay out our food plots and just draw them out on paper because it just makes it easier,
Yeah,
right? Than showing up and
But the cool thing is, you bring in several different guys.
oh yeah,
And there's several different mindsets there, maybe.
yeah,
And you're asking, hey, what do you think about this, Wyatt? Well, Dave, what do you think about this property? Craig, what do you think? What do you think would work
Yeah.
here? Todd, what do you think about this?
Wills, what do you think?
Campbell, what do you think
Campbell,
about this?
Yeah,
Kenny, what do you think here?
yeah,
You get several different guys that you respect their opinion, and maybe they don't have as much experience as somebody else. But it's important to get their thought process on that because maybe they're thinking something that I overlooked
Well,
or you
I
overlooked.
think. Well, I mean, to that point, I mean, one person that's been incredibly influential to me and Todd both is Mike Boyles, and I think Mike kind of came to us. He had just had an interest in bow hunting, and that's all Mike does, and he came to us. He's like, hey, I know you guys mess around with bows and stuff a lot. I had some questions about a bow. I said, well, come down to the house. I'll help you. So anyway, so we got to talking and shooting together a little bit, on weeknights and stuff, and anyway, so he was asking questions about deer hunting and stuff. I said, well, hey, why don't you go out on Saturday morning? We're going to put out some minerals and do some things like that, work on some food plots, and I'll show you how we have some tree stands positioned and different things like that. And I said, maybe, that'll help you on the property that you can hunt. So anyway, so we went through that Saturday and stuff, and like after the fact, he was like, man, that was awesome, And I said, well, hey, man, any time that you want to go with us, you're more than welcome. And he was like, do you mean that? I said, yeah, absolutely. I said, I'll let you know the next time we're going out. Every time we're going out, I'll let you know. So, dude, I mean, we couldn't shake the guy, which was awesome.
He was always
right?
there.
I mean,
yeah.
he was always there, and I mean, he was like the most helpful person as far as like doing like physical stuff. Like he wasn't just sitting back and watching and like letting us
You're like, hey,
sweat to death,
hey,
hanging a tree stand.
hey,
He's like,
Boyles,
what can I do?
hang that stand right up there in that tree.
Well, I mean, I'm not kidding you. Like, so we went to hang a tree stand. And he goes, hey, can I hang this? And I go, I guess. Why?
You
He's
realize
like,
this sucks, right?
yeah. He's like, man, I just want to practice. I haven't done this near as much as you guys. I'm like, well, yeah, dude. If you want to hang some of my tree stands, go right ahead. Because this is,
Yeah.
like I don't necessarily look forward to hanging tree stands in the summer.
Yeah, that's like work.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, but my point to that is, so through all of that, we started, hanging out with Boyles bi-weekly, 3 or 4 times a week shooting, hanging tree stands, just doing everything, running cameras, all of that type of stuff. And so he had a little property that he hunted. Didn't have a lot of deer on it, and I had another property that I didn't hunt a whole lot. And excuse me. I said, hey man, I said, we got some good deer here. I said, why don't you come over and hunt? He's like, no, 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 that's not my priority. I don't want to do that. I said, man, you've been there all summer, like doing all this work with us. You're like, that's as much your property as it is mine to hunt right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't feel good about that. I haven't done anything. So anyway, so finally we convinced him to hunt it and stuff, and he did. But messing around with boils, it makes me real, because he'll ask questions and they seem like they've, and not so much anymore, because he's a phenomenal hunter, man. I'm here to tell you, he's been hunting 4 years. Like him and Craig and Kelly, honestly, are like my three people that like I've helped hunt that are like just leaps and bounds above above others. I think because they have such a passion for it, right? But he like asks these small questions that I think, as maybe more seasoned hunters, like, we've all hunted, several years, we overlook.
Take for granted certain things.
Yeah, we take for granted certain
things.
Take
shortcuts where you shouldn't, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of good to like revisit that. And it made me a better hunter because, like what you just said, instead of taking a shortcut, like I'm going to do everything 100% right because I want to show Mike how to do it 100% right because I want him to be successful. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
Now, who is included on your lease now?
Mike.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That all stems from, we used to hunt when I was a kid. My dad and Mike's dad were best friends and stuff in high school and then like out of high school and stuff. But Jim didn't hunt or anything. But we used to hunt on Mike's grandfather's place. I mean, for years. Like, we had sole permission. Like, me and my dad. And
right.
like we could take whoever we wanted, right?
Right.
But we didn't take a lot of people. Todd and his dad and my dad's buddy George and Campbell, he went over with us, from time to time. But we had sole permission there, and then his grandpa got older, and sold the property. It was before Mike was interested in hunting or anything like that, and he'd been out there working with us, for like this was like what 2 or 3 summers, like he'd been like busting his hump, helping us with everything, and like just loves it. Like he wasn't doing it because we were like, hey man, I need some help. He's doing it. He's like, hey, can I come with you guys? And like over the time we became best friends. I mean, all three of us,
So he's shown his worth. I mean, he's shown what kind of guy he is.
Well, yeah. I mean, like just showing that passion. You know what I mean? And it was like, well, I mean, there was nobody else that we could think to repay his family for what they did for us for years. I mean, that was my favorite place to hunt. Like, there's no way that I could ever like put into words like what that place meant to me.
Right.
And what it felt like when it got sold. And like I understand, like that's what they needed to do and everything. I'm not complaining about that. But I mean, it was, it hurt, and it hurt my dad. I mean, in a lot of ways, and not like in a malicious way. I don't mean that, but it was just a lot of memories
connected to
there.
those proproperties.
Yeah,
they spent time
a lot of memories there, and with that considered and all the effort and stuff that he wanted, and the property that we're on right now, like it's a really good learning property. It's a good way to learn how to age deer. It's a good way to see a lot of deer, and it breaks down. It's got like a lot of different terrain, so it's a good way to learn how to hunt different terrain.
Yeah.
Properly and stuff, and so we, so it was an easy. It was an easy choice, and I don't want any of my other friends to listen to this and think like, well, why didn't you pick? Why didn't you pick me?
Why didn't you pick me? Why?
Would have been a good choice, and everybody would have been.
Why we drank beer back in high school? Why didn't you pick me?
Right. You know what I mean? And any of my close friends would have been, right? But here's the thing: like Mike, like the one property that he was hunting, he had lost. Like he wasn't able to hunt it anymore. He was kind of like in a weird transition as far as that goes. As far as like hunting land, a spot came open, on our lease, and he'd been over there working with us, just not because we'd ask him to.
Heck, he hung most of the stands over there, right?
Yeah, so. Right. Yeah. No, not quite, but he hung a few. But he'd been over there working with us and everything. It was the natural choice in that situation, and in 10 years, or if it would have been 5 years before or anything, it might have been somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but like
absolutely.
in that scenario, like that was the person that needed to be there.
Yeah.
You
Well, I
know,
can say,
and he wants to learn, and
yeah,
it's a great place to learn.
and I can say just from an outsider, kind of observing, how you guys all interact and everything. Um, it should be the goal. Well, I shouldn't say it should be the goal of every. It would be like my goal to have that kind of property and that many like-minded guys working together on something. That's it's just a kind of a beautiful thing, and
Well, we're fortunate, but I also think that you put in what you or you get what you put into it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, it's kind of the reap what you
or
sow kind
yeah,
of thing.
reap what you sow kind of thing. And that goes with like friendships, and that goes with finding people that are like-minded. Like you can't just go to the Ace Hardware and say, "Hey, buddy, I see you're looking at some
Yeah.
camo. You want to go hunting together?" I mean, because you don't know who
But
that person
you know what?
is.
But everybody's met that guy, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I,
Right. Right.
the Facebook guy, just sends,
Yeah,
hey, which
yeah.
may sound bad if somebody listens to this, but I like
No,
talking,
no, no.
I like talking
Yeah.
hunting and fishing with everybody, but it's kind of weird whenever you get a message from somebody that you never talked to and just like, hey, you ought to take me hunting sometime.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I get that, man.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
But
Dude, here's the thing. Here's the thing about it. And I take a lot of people hunting and fishing like every year. Like there's multiple people, and I try to like kind of rotate into like new people like that have an interest.
right,
And like maybe I don't actually take them hunting, but like there were some kids like this last summer that went to school up here, and they were quite a bit younger than me, but they went to the same high school and stuff, and we knew each other through the community, and they were asking me some questions about food plots and asking me some questions about tree stand placement and just a lot of different stuff. I said, well, hey, dude, get a free weekend, and I'll get a free weekend. I said, I'll come over and look at your property with you, and I said, I don't take my word for the
I'm
Bible.
no expert, but I will help you out what I can.
Yeah, right, exactly. So and so I did that, and like we were in contact, all through season and stuff, through text and phone calls, and stop by and look at, deer and stuff. And they actually, they had a pretty good deer season.
Well,
They
good.
got some
Good.
nice deer, and they were definitely more successful than they had been in the past. So I felt good about that, right?
As you should.
Yeah.
As you should, really.
So,
yeah.
I don't know, but like like I'll help anybody that wants to learn, but I don't want that person that just wants that wants to just
Not
go
looking for a shortcut.
yeah, that just wants to go, just go kill something. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like that. I
Yeah.
don't like that because it's so much more than just going and killing something.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I'm at. I don't like that person that shows up. Let's say firearm season's opened up on the 14th of November. I don't like that person that gets a hold of me on the 10th of November and says, "Man, hey, you should take me hunting."
Yeah, you ought to take me this
No,
year.
because see, here's the
Yeah.
thing: you missed out on the entire experience, and
Mhm.
in order to appreciate it and know, know this sport, this outdoors, this heritage, this conservation movement, like I know it or like I feel it.
Yeah.
Shouldn't say like I know it, but like I feel it. It's a 365 kind of deal.
Yeah.
You got to live it.
Yeah,
know?
you do.
And if you want to live it, come on, man. I'll we'll do it.
And you
But-
know what? Like, there's probably somebody listening right now, and this is fine, and I think that this is a fine thought process to have. That's sitting here thinking, yeah, I get what you're saying, that 365 stuff, but here's the thing about it. Like, I don't have property that I lease, or I don't have private ground and stuff that I can hunt. I can't plant food plots, so I can't do stuff 365. And I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's a lot of things that we can do as hunters to do things 365. And it doesn't necessarily have to revolve around a food plot or putting out minerals or something like that. You can be on state property. Go find some new state property to hunt if you hunt public land, and scout your butt off.
Mhm.
Find 10 or 15 mature buck beds, bedding areas, and figure out how you're going to hunt those on like different wind scenarios.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Different times of the year. That way you have backup plans.
Yeah,
like, don't
be
just
in
have
there.
that one thing.
Yeah, so most likely you're going to be hunting with a climber or on the ground or something if you go
right,
in there
or
on public
hanging,
ground.
hanging hunt, something.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, so map those out.
Yes.
Find those
Yeah,
locations.
yeah.
There's so many ways that you can get involved.
If you want to be 365, you can always find a way, and you can always find something to do. And even if that's listening to podcasts or reading online to be better, watching watching videos on YouTube or on Carbon TV or
Right,
on
yeah.
the Outdoor Channel or wherever you're watching videos or getting your
You can
hunting
get it on your
content
phone while
on
you're
your phone.
taking
Yeah.
a restroom break or whatever,
Whatever.
like some people
Yeah.
do.
You know, like if you want to get better and you want to learn, like and you want to spend time outdoors, you can. I mean, we honestly, like, we spend some time on public land just scouting around. It's not even public land that, like, we can hunt, like, at a state park or something. Like, we'll go to, like, a state park and,
But there's
like,
something
just,
you can learn there.
yeah, and just kind of, like, piddle around. And that's why I like going to other people's properties and looking at them and stuff with them, because, like, I can learn something
to
from
learn.
that property and apply it to my own, you know?
Yep.
Not that I'm ever going to hunt it.
No,
But
it's-
maybe there's
you
something
can
that,
learn.
like, breaks down similar. And maybe it's the middle of the summer and I'm too afraid to go into, like, some of my better spots. But I can go into a spot that looks just like it, on some state property and poke around and not be super concerned about,
Yeah.
screwing stuff up.
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know? So, I don't know.
Well, tell you what, Wyatt, we've been sitting here chattering on for a while, and I feel like we could go on for like another hour, man. I mean,
Oh, dude, I'm ready.
we could just keep rolling, dude.
I
This
might
is
need
like
some more water, but I'm primed.
Well, for the sake of this, the length of this episode, we probably ought to get ready to toss it off here now. But yeah, man. I know you've been a part of the group for a while, but I guess as far as the podcast thing goes, welcome.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it, actually. I didn't
Yeah.
know how I'd feel about it, but I enjoyed it.
Man,
So.
and I think
I
I think you did a great job, man. I mean, it's just time just flowed. We just
Thanks.
we didn't have a quote unquote professional on here, for Pro
We
Talk
definitely-
Outdoors,
You
but
definitely did not have a
but
professional.
I think we covered a whole lot of different topics
Yeah.
that are really important.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, I think that anybody that listens to this podcast start to finish going to know a little bit more about what Wyatt Rivers really stands for, and I think they're going to appreciate what you do. So.
Well, thanks. I appreciated it, and anybody that listens to it, thanks. I mean, and look forward to any kind of feedback, whether that be good or bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we all can have different opinions, but still pursue the same same thing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's-
So on Instagram, what's your Instagram?
it's Wyatt Rivers.
Just
I'm pretty simple. Yeah, yeah.
Just it's Wyatt Rivers,
Wyatt Rivers,
which is a cool name, by the way. So
Yeah.
yeah, same thing on Facebook. So
Yeah.
folks, get out there, follow Wyatt, give him a like on.
I do a lot more on Instagram than I do on Facebook, honestly.
Yeah, you got a great Instagram page. It's pretty impressive. I
Thanks,
like
buddy.
it. It's like my goal to improve my Instagram page to be like as good as yours. So
Yeah, I definitely have those people that I think that about.
it's also my goal
You need
to
to
have.
rate.
I'd like to have my wall look as good as yours too. But hey, we're getting there.
You need to raise your goals. Raise your goals a little bit.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to sign off, and we'll be back again with another episode sometime in the near future. So, as for Wyatt and I, we're going to sign off.
See you guys. Thanks.